Hello everyone, I'm Tara Jones and I'm back again for another training exercise. Previously we talked about an exercise called the chain link, and as we went through this exercise I had my good buddy Striker with me, and we showed you how to do it alternating the rein one rein at a time using the raking method. Then I showed you how to use an opening or a direct rein, one rein at a time going through it. And then we changed to using both reins and going through the whole pattern, weaving in and out of the barrels and slightly changing our direction as we went through. Now I'm going to show you a variation on that pattern because I'm a trainer that loves, once I have a pattern set down, I like to think of about 10 different things I can do with that pattern so that I don't have to keep getting off to change anything around. Because once I'm on, I like to be on and I like to think of different things that I can do with it. So what I'm going to show you with the chain link exercise today, and again it's a series of a bunch of barrels. I'll leave the link below of what that exercise entails. But now we're going to go ahead and we're going to circle each barrel. And what this is going to help with is it's going to help with our lateral cervical flexion, which we have talked about in great length before. It's also going to help Striker to bend laterally through both sides of his body. So as he starts to circle around each barrel on one rein at a time using the raking method first, then I'm going to go ahead and just apply pressure with one rein using just a holding pressure and an opening rein so that the bit would come open on the corner of his mouth and he would come step in the direction of the pressure or the direction that he feels the bit. And then once we get into that phase, I'm going to show you how you can do it with two reins. As I've done before in the previous exercises, I'll show you at the end some of the common mistakes that people make so that you can be sure not to do those mistakes. Sometimes the very basic exercises that we teach are the fundamentals and the foundation, and you really need to have a good handle on the finer, intricate parts and the technique of each exercise. So I'm going to go ahead and hop on strike, and I'm going to go ahead and show you the chain link exercise doing full circles. Ready, buddy? Now we're going to enhance the regular chain link exercise and start performing circles around each barrel. So as Striker and I move through the pattern, we're going to slowly rotate from the right rein, raking all the way a full circle around that barrel, and then we're going to change our bend to the left and start raking to the left, making a full circle around that barrel. So we'll continue on through the pattern, doing so in the exact same manner. We're going to rake right, make a full circle, and then we're going to go ahead and change and rake left. One of the hardest parts of this exercise is when the horse is at that moment where the head and neck are basically straight. So the hardest thing for a horse to do is get that 4-inch bend off to the left or off to the right from a straight head position. So this allows the rider and horse to practice doing so. We're going to continue back down through the pattern again. And as you can see, when we first came through the pattern, Striker was rather wide on some of his turns. There you can see he's wide again. So right there I went ahead and I added both legs and told him to speed up the rear. So I want him to add activity to his hind feet in order to push the shoulders through and around the barrel. It's basically very important to have the horse on contact. So he should be reaching up into my hand and feeling my hand. So in turn, we're making that connection, and I'm able to manipulate his body and move him in a further direction while I'm weaving through this pattern. So as we progress, you'll see that his circles start to become more and more prominent, where he's actually starting to encompass the barrel. He'll start to get closer and closer to it, and at each point around the barrel, where if I would think north, south, east, west, if I'd go ahead and paint a diamond around the barrel, I want him to hit those 4 points as we're weaving through. So we'll continue on in the same manner. And as we keep weaving through, he's going to get better and better. Now what I've changed to is I'm just changing to a direct opening rein. So once your horse is really good at raking, and you have established that nice softness through the horse's poll and neck, then you can go ahead and open your rein so that when you're picking up the rein to the right, you're asking for the horse to step out to 1 o'clock. And when you pick up the rein to the left, you're asking the horse to step out to 11. As you can see, Striker's kind of scurrying through, and that's my doing. I really want him to step up to my hand and take that contact. That way I can maneuver him and make him much better at weaving through this pattern. There you can see he's making a nice round circle. So once the steps are fluid and even, then you're really working towards your better goal. There you can see I have slight head tilt, and that is not a goal of mine. So I might add leg to send him forward into my hand so that I'm not adding too much rein pressure and pulling the front end. That's often a mistake many riders make. They tend to pull on the front, and if they pull on the front, you create the drag through the horse's shoulder. That's never going to make your horse softer. Lightness comes through forward. So the more that your horse is forward and the more that your horse is listening to your forward aids by both leg cues, the better that they're going to be in your hand with the contact. So now we're going to continue through again. And we're still going to continue making our circles around each barrel. Now I'm going to start to change to using both reins. Now this is where this exercise can get a little tricky. While the inside rein is going to pick up and ask for the bend and ask for the shoulder to step in the direction of travel, the outside rein is going to pretty much make a wall. You don't want to cross that rein over the horse's neck, because most times when you do that, you're going to teach the horse to push and lean into the aid. Many times when people neck rein, they end up bringing both reins across the horse's neck. And in turn, the horse ends up bending in the opposite direction and leaning into the rider's hand, not with just the nose or the mouth on the bit, but actually with the neck muscles. They end up pushing into the rein. So when we have that, we end up getting the horse pushing almost in the opposite direction. So here you can see that Striker is really almost trying to keep his head and neck in between his two front feet, because that's where I would desire it to be. And at moments, you'll see his mouth come open. Now, a lot of times when that happens, I'm half halting. So my body, my core, my back, everything is holding. When I feel Striker lean down into my hand, instead of adding more rein pressure, I'm actually just making myself stronger through my body and through my core. So when he reaches down into that contact and goes to lean on me, he feels like he can't lean on that, and in turn reflects back and bounces back off the bit pressure. So over time, he's going to learn that he has to lift his shoulder and step out in the direction of travel or the way he feels the bit. So if I'm opening up my right rein, I do want his right front foot to step out to 1 o'clock. As he starts to get more precise at this exercise, you're going to see him get really close to these barrels. And again, I'm keeping the idea of having the compass, so my north, south, east, west points. And now we're going to continue through, and I'm going to show you some common mistakes. Now, why it's a little bit hard to see me because I'm not really zoomed in, but you can see that I'm really leaning. A lot of riders tend to try to lean or push their body in the direction of the barrel, and that never really helps the horse. I'm going to over-exaggerate some of the hand positions that I often see. Sometimes people pick straight up, they'll come across the body, and what you'll have is what Striker just did there. So the horse tends to move its hindquarters because the rider's hand is coming behind the withers. Anytime the rider brings the hand behind the withers, the horse is going to end up moving the hindquarters, or basically turning on the forehand. In turn, the horse is going to get really close to the barrel, or they're going to stop all forward momentum. A lot of times this causes the horse to run into the barrel. Now you'll see me leaning, pushing, using my inside leg, and oftentimes this is a mistake that a rider makes as well. And here you'll see me leaning down towards the barrel or leaning out away from the barrel, all in an attempt to try to get my horse to move the midsection away from the barrel. Really, in all reality, just do this exercise and teach your horse to be responsive to the rein aids. As time goes on, you can enhance this movement because they'll already understand your seat.
The more square you can keep your hips and your shoulders, and you can follow the horse's hips and the shoulders, the better off in the long run the horse will understand your aids and start to really put together all the pieces of the puzzle. Remember, you always have three main aids. You have your seat aids, your leg aids, and your hand or rein aids. There are one set of aids that the horse cannot ignore, and that is those of the bridle or the reins, the rider's hands. So always use that in conjunction in the best possible way you can. I always say it's a blessing and a curse to be able to use your rein aids well. Don't overuse your rein aids, but in turn make it a pleasant thing for your horse so that your horse can learn to trust your rein and your hand. And now you'll see I'm really pushing him up into a trot. Once your horse starts to get this exercise, you can do this exercise at a trot. And what I'm trying to do is get a nice fluid trot all the way around the barrel. If you watch, Striker's inside hind foot has to be stepping all the way around the barrel. So oftentimes what I think of is if I were to place a hula hoop basically over each barrel, that inside hind foot needs to travel around on that hula hoop. So you're making a pretty small circle. Try not to get involved too much with keeping the shoulders on that circle. Try to think of the tail going around that barrel. The more that you can ride your horse from the hind instead of trying to steer your horse from the front end, and that goes hand in hand with teaching your horse to move forward, the better off you'll be. So I hope this has helped, and I hope the chain link circles are something that you can work on with your horse and get better at over time. Remember, you can use cones for this exercise too, but the barrels are always better. I'll see you on the next one, everybody. Thanks so much for watching.